Well, hello and welcome once again to the Doctor of Digital podcast. I'm the Doctor of Digital. The purpose of the show is to transform your business and life with education and inspiration. I introduce busy business leaders to trends in business, technology, and marketing to highlight people you should know. Are you tired of feeling like your e-commerce business is stuck in neutral? You're not alone. Many entrepreneurs struggle to scale their brand, often feeling overwhelmed by the sheer amount of work required to keep up with marketing demands. But what if you could break free from the cycle of burnout and achieve sustainable growth? Join me as we explore the strategies and secrets of the e-commerce growth architect, AJ Saunders, who has helped numerous D2C and CPG brands achieve remarkable success. As a seasoned digital marketing expert with over a decade of experience, AJ has built a reputation as the go-to architect for e-commerce brands with a background in HTML coding and a passion for marketing. AJ has developed a unique approach to e-commerce growth that combines strategic planning, technical expertise, and a deep understanding of the latest digital marketing trends. From launching an e-book publishing company to advising global e-commerce shops, AJ has worked with a wide range of clients and has a proven track record of delivering results. With his expertise, you'll gain a deeper understanding of how to overcome e-commerce challenges and achieve the growth you've always dreamed of. During this episode, we'll do a deep dive into the changes and hot topics of e-commerce, including its biggest challenges and growth. I will leverage the expertise of my guest and how to navigate the unique dynamics of the field. By the end of this episode, you'll be better equipped to know what to do, and I encourage you to contact my guest, AJ Saunders, founder of Audacious Commerce. And with that, I'd like to welcome AJ to the program. How you doing today, AJ?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing, Mick?
You bet. I love the name of that, Audacious Commerce. So could you tell us a little bit about your background and how did you get into this field in the first place?
Yeah, so my first career was music.
Nice.
And after spending 5 years not making really any money playing guitar in London, that I'm from Britain, can't tell from the accent, in London, our capital city, I came back to my small little town called Bath, known for its Georgian heritage, and Jane Austen, and Bridgerton, if you're into that kind of thing. I googled how to make money online, and I found people like Neil Patel, Pat Flynn, Spencer Hawes, etc., 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 and that's kind of how I fell into digital marketing. And I realized very, very quickly that I love thinking about how to persuade and coerce people into buying things.
Yeah, sure.
And that was 12 years ago. I haven't looked back since. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, as they say, Mick. So yeah.
You'd say over the past experience now, what would you say, because this is a really changing field, what would be some of the biggest changes that you have seen?
So there's a couple. So people have become more sophisticated in how they buy. And so I think it's become harder for merchants to convince people to buy things. So I think there's more choice. I think also we've seen lots of discounts come and go, and we're blind to discounts now. For example, just an example, I think privacy has become a big issue, but I don't think we've had a reasonable, sensible debate around what privacy is. So I think those two have been the kind of main two changes that I've seen. And I've also seen lots of kind of cowboys, as you probably have, who've come in and done things and messed the industry up, and then they've had to, the big platforms, whether that's Meta, whether that's Google, whether that's TikTok, have then had to come and do reactive work that's harmed everybody.
Right. And then related to that is not only changes, of course, but people are very curious, again, with a changeable field. What are some hot topics, or what do you see are like coming down the pike?
So I think we have a real strong debate around privacy coming forth. And what I mean by privacy is not what Meta think that privacy is, but what privacy actually is. And what I mean by that is as we operate online, we have the option to give away some of our privacy. So we upload photos, we talk about what we've been doing, or where we've been going, or what we've been eating. And all of that is getting harvested and collected by some of these big platforms. And for me, we need to have a debate whether A, they should be doing that, B, whether we should be putting some of that stuff out there, whether that's actually helpful, and then B, we as marketers, including you in this, Mick, right? We as marketers need some of that data, so it's a two-way thing of, yes, you want privacy, but we need to understand who we're talking to be able to tailor our message better, or tailor what adverts are showing. Because adverts only really work. This is what I'm like. Adverts only work if we can target the appropriate person at the appropriate time.
Right. Sure.
And so we have to have some data on it, but we don't need to have the fairest amount of data. And so I think we need to have a sensible, reasoned debate around what privacy is that is not reactive, like GDPR is, for example, in Europe, or the Can Spam Act in California, right? Because I believe a lot of those are very harmful after the fact. But I do think privacy is going to become more and more of an issue that we need to address. We need to address A, who owns the platform, B, what data they're collecting, how they're using that data, and whether we can opt out of them using some of that data or all of that data. But then understanding that that may limit what the experience we have is on those platforms.
And who maintains it? How long?
And yeah.
All the related questions.
Absolutely.
Since you have a European experience, I'm curious if you could just touch on the differences between the European scene and the United States and other parts of the world.
So I think we have a big legislation called GDPR, which a lot of American firms have. So Meredith, for example, the big publishing company, have essentially pulled out of Europe, lock, stock, and barrel, because they don't want to have to deal with this legislation. So if you try and get a MarthaStewart.com over here, I think that's one of their big sites, you can't access it, right? And so I think, again, I'm all for sensible privacy and sensible legislation that helps the user take back control. But also I think it needs to be a two-way street where a lot of these bigger brands that are American, for example, are not operating in the Wild West of the early 2000s, but now operating with really quite sophisticated clients and customers.
Sure.
But they also need to kind of meet them halfway. And so I think that's kind of the difference. So, and it's a real shame for some of these big publications to think, right, we can't figure out the mechanism as a global organization of having a data protection officer in Europe somewhere that will allow us to then monetize the content that we have, for example, right? So I think it's a two-way street. I think a lot of this stuff needs to be resolved internationally and not just retroactively as a small kind of plaster or band-aid.
Yep. And since we're in the global world, I think this is what complicates everything, right? So different laws, different legislation, different countries have different ideas.
Yeah. But I do think there's some common consensus across.
Okay.
And therefore, I don't think it's about having one universal legislation, but it's about having similar legislation across the world.
Mm-hmm.
And getting people to adapt. So having a framework that works universally, then different countries adapt and different countries use. And that provides the basis of their privacy protection.
And we have on other areas, international law, human rights. I mean, there are things like that we've been able to work on a global scale. So this would just be another area.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when you're thinking about and what business owners, if there is sort of a typical, more or less, that's a big question to ask, and international scale, what sort of recommendations would you make given the scene that we're in currently?
So number one would be don't panic. Number two would be find a local expert. So if you're operating in Europe, a lot of the European law is pan-European. So even though we're not in the EU anymore, being in Britain, we still have adopted a lot of those laws. So you might be able to find somebody in the UK or in, say, Germany who can advise you. You might have to find somebody in, say, New York who understands the US law, right? But don't try and figure out for yourself. Work with qualified, reasonable partners who can help and counsel and advise you. Because I know, for example, in America, a lot of states are now bringing in accessibility laws, which I'm all in favor for. Because I want the web to be accessible. I want the web to be able for, regardless of what ability or disabilities you have, to be able to be usable, right?
Yes.
And in a lot of those cases, people are getting fined. Small businesses are getting fined $20,000, $30,000 because they're not using the right colors or they're not doing something very, very stupid that's very easy to fix.
Mm-hmm.
If they were working with the right partner who understood that. And so oftentimes, don't try and go it alone. Find a good partner. Listen to their advice. Make sure that you ask them the right questions into how they stay up to date. What are they doing in order to stay ahead of the curve? And who is enacting law that may supersede other people's regulation, right?
Yeah.
But actually may provide a better benchmark to grade yourself against, right? Because then you probably, hopefully, will be safe with less of the regulation. So that's what I would say. And then I would say it's not a one-time activity. It's an ongoing thing. So if you can do like a quarterly review or a 6-monthly review, or do something every month towards making sure that you're staying compliant and that you're doing the right things in the right order, I am all for that. So that's how I do it.
Would you walk us through a little bit? So if a person is interested in working with you, could you describe the process and what's that like?
So me in general, so I essentially work with e-com brands to help them understand what strategic marketing is. So what strategic marketing is the idea that you have an end goal that you're trying to reach. And what we do is we then build a plan based on your internal resources and your external resources and your external environment, your internal environment, to get you to that point. We put in things like KPIs, key performance indicators, benchmarks, milestones. And then what we do is we then select what marketing channels you should be using that will enable you to push forward.
Okay.
And then we build tactical plans, and then I work with clients to help them stay focused. Because as you well know, a lot of clients will come in and say, well, we want to do X, Y, and Z, and then they'll go to the pub and somebody said, well, you should be on TikTok, or you should be on, and there's no strategic reason behind it. There's never, right? And so they then get deluded and then try this nice shiny object that never works out. And so a lot of what I do is corralling people into the straight and narrow.
So you're looking at maybe strategy first, and
strategy first, yeah.
And then content execution, something along those lines.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you're right. You hear a lot of maybe myths like, oh, you got to be everywhere, you got to be on every platform, and TikTok is hot, I got to get on TikTok, right?
But with a lot of marketing channels, I call it the Uberization of marketing, right? So people look at Uber, for example, or like Tesla, right? And they think, well, Tesla is everywhere, we need to be Tesla, but they're not acting in their macroeconomic reality. Uber has the budget to hire 20 people to run each different social channel, right?
Yeah.
You don't. You probably have one person, that's you, who's trying to run the business and the marketing, or you're working with a small team. And so you have to really adapt what you're doing to be more in line with your reality, right? Because then it will allow you to actually make progress. And I think a lot of people think, you're right, a lot of people think they need to build every social channel, they need to build everything to everybody. But then that dilutes the purpose of what they're trying to do. Whereas if they've picked, right, we just be on, most of our audience are on Reddit, so we just be on Reddit. Fantastic, right? That's all we're going to invest our time, effort, money into. Yeah. I think that's a much better, much more measured way of building momentum and building the resources and the cash that will give you the ability to go and do Meta or to go and do TikTok or whatever. but it's being single focused on where can I get the best penetration for the buck.
Mm-hmm. And of course, it depends on what it is you're offering, right? So let's say if you have a product geared for elderly people, they wouldn't necessarily be on TikTok, right?
No. But they might be using like a niche forum.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, that's what strategic marketing is trying to look at all the different options that you have and saying, what is the cost to acquire a client through that channel? Where are they actually likely to be? What does the plan entail to reach them, etc. Right? I think by doing that and doing it methodically, you can actually come to the conclusion that you can reach more clients cheaper and better by being narrow focused rather than trying to be broad.
Yeah. And I always point out this is the difference between the old days we used to do broadcasting, right? So it's to everybody everywhere, and it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping it sticks.
Correct.
Marketing now is so much more sophisticated. It's really, you can gear down and find exactly who your audience is.
100%.
Could you provide maybe just give an overview of some of the clients that you've worked with, because you do have quite an extensive experience?
Yeah. So I've worked with retailers that have had, so I can think of one in Scotland who had 3 stores and had an online store, and I came in and I rejigged their whole online operation. I've worked with a women's wear brand, and we've looked at buying a factory in Latvia with them. We've looked at doing a funding round. I'm involved at the moment with a client who sells smart home products and they're based in the Middle East, so trying to get them actually established in the UK market. That's been a lot of fun. And then I had a client a couple of years ago who was trying to sell pavement cleaning for industrial projects, right?
Okay.
And with all of them, it's all about trying to solve what problem, trying to understand what problem they're trying to solve, and then trying to find out where the clients are and educate the clients in a meaningful, productive way to convert into actual clients.
And with this sort of, like I always try to overview here with the changes and hot topics and whatever, could you provide somebody who says, okay, I get what you're talking about, but what can I do today? It's like, so what actionable tips, what should I be aware of?
Sure. Build a marketing strategy. So a marketing strategy says the endpoint that we are trying to reach looks like A, B, and C. Right? The resources we have internally are 1, 2, 3. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The external competition we face are 4, 5, and 6. Right?
Yes.
And by doing that exercise and by saying, right, where are we trying to get to, who are we trying to compete against, what does the landscape look like, what internal and external resources do we have? And then the kind of the fourth part is saying how we're going to measure our progress towards that outcome. You can then start to build a plan that makes sense based on your internal and external resources, based on the competitive market that you're operating in, and based on the outcome that you want. Most businesses, as you probably will know, Mick, are playing to play.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a defined outcome what they're trying to reach. So they're just trying to make, they're just trying to make as much profit as last year. They're just trying to grow by 10%, right?
Yeah.
They haven't figured out what their North Star is or what their preferred outcome should or would be. And so they're just playing the game to play the game. They're not playing a game that they can win.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And it's with this, it tells us where to start, I guess. And this is the great thing about marketing, because I believe that they have the best interests of their clients and customers at heart, because they want to provide the things that people are looking for. That's the kind of marketing.
Yeah.
So if a person has heard what you have to say, some of your tips, changes, hot topics, how do they reach out to you? How do they find you?
So you can go to alldaycommerce.com. I got about 40 blog posts up there that detail how to market your e-commerce business, how to market an online store. I post pretty much daily on LinkedIn. That's just it's AJ Saunders-ecom. if you search AJ Saunders, you'll find me. Hopefully, I'll probably be the first or second result. And so yeah, those are kind of the two primary places to find me. I'm always willing to talk to people. Always able to, I do high level consulting, so I'm not cheap, but it gives me the ability to be able to talk to people and be able to plant seeds that later flourish. So yeah, come talk to me.
All right, sounds good. Well, I want to thank you. I know you're busy, but thanks for taking some time out and chatting with
My
us,
pleasure.
sharing some of the wisdom that you have, and the international experience is really helpful. So thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.
Well, if you enjoyed what you've heard, and I certainly did, and I've learned a lot, hopefully that what you will do is also reach out for the podcast as well too. Share, comment, review positively, and tell everybody else about the program. And I want to thank the supporters of the program, that is the publishers of both Burning America and On Track, Ian Hunter, for the support of the program. And of course, if you want to reach out to me, I'm the Idea to Author Coach, guiding your journey from draft to shell. I help business leaders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs break through their obscurity through written presentations, building credibility and authority. The Idea to Author Coach, you can join the private Facebook group. And of course, if you have some other interest, get in touch with me. Hopefully you're listening to the program and enjoy good guests like AJ. Until next time, this is the Dr. Digital signing off.